In this video we'll see how we can do continuous deployment using FluxCD. I have a sample Nginx application which we are going to use it for continuous deployment. So for that we need to create an empty Git repository in GitHub. So here it is, I have created. You can see it is empty now. We will be using this repository as a source of truth for our Nginx application. So now once we have this Git repository, we need to tell FluxCD source controller that this is going to be our source of truth for our Nginx application. So we need to define the SOT. So when we define the SOT in FluxCD, what happens is an object with the name, or you can say kind, Git repository will be created in Kubernetes cluster. That way we tell source controller that this is our source of truth for Nginx application. So once we define source of truth, we need to tell that how frequently this source of truth should be reconciled, you can say pulled from, right? So now we should be using customization controller for that, because in our source of truth we have used customization approach for declaring our source of truth. So we need to tell customization controller that this is our Git repository, and when we mention that, then customization controller is going to track the object called Git repository which will be created in the cluster to apply the changes in the names in the namespace which we are going to provide. So with this theory concept, we'll go ahead and see how it works practically. Now what I'll do is I have come here in this repository, so I'll be cloning this repository to my local. So here I have created one empty directory, and if I go here to git clone, paste, right? So here we have this empty repository now. So I'll be opening it in VS Code. What I'll do is I have already created a sample Nginx application and all the manifest files just to save the time, but I'll explain everything like what we have in here. Right, I have just copied these two files. Now since we have opened it in VS Code, I'll be explaining what we have. So here I have created deploy directory, and in this one I have Nginx application manifest files, and these two YAML files which I will explain you in a little bit time. So let's go with the Nginx application. So I'll not go much deeper into the technicalities of these definition files, but I'll just give the brief overview here. So here we have this deployment object which is running one pod with this container of Nginx, and it is having let's say we'll create one replica of our Nginx application. We have one node port service which is tracking our Nginx application. We are using customization way of for deploying our manifest files. So as you know, when we do not use these kind of solutions, then as we discussed in our previous videos, we need to deploy them individually. So here using customization, here I have mentioned them in a resources section regarding these two manifest files. Now this customization will take care of the order of deployment and many things. Like it has so many features which I'm not going to discuss here because our motto is to understand continuous deployment, right? So we have these definition files and we have customization. So this means we need to tell FluxCD that we are going to use this source of truth, and since we are using customization solution here, then we need to tell we need to use customization controller which is present in uh, FluxCD to apply our changes to our environment, right? So the first way is this manifest file. I'll show you how I created, and I also provide the link of uh, where we have all the steps on how I created this manifest file. I'll show you that first. So here if you see, in last video we created bootstrapped our FluxCD using this command, right? So using this flux CLI command, I have, like, what we are telling is to Flux that please create the a Git repository in our cluster with the name Nginx app SOT, and refer to the Git repository which we created. So in our case it is this one, so we need to change its name here. I change the name. So right, what we are telling is to refer to this Git repository and look for the main branch, and the reconciliation time is 30 seconds. So with this export flag we are going to we are creating this YAML file. Okay, so here I need to replace the name. Alright, so when I run this command, it is going to create this manifest file with all these details. Okay, so it is going to create a object of kind Git repository in our this namespace which I have created manually, and it is going to point to the Git repository which we passed over here. So it is going to track like for every 30 seconds. And the next is, so once we have like the source pulled, we need to apply those changes, right? So this is the command which using which we are going to create this manifest file. So here what we are telling is to the customization controller that to track the Git repository or the kind object which we created in our cluster, right? So we need to tell to the customization controller that look for this source, right, and look in this directory. So this is the deployed directory which I created. So it will look into this directory. It will loop through all the files which will be placed in this directory, and it will try to apply the changes which are defined in the manifest files. And prune, with the prune we discussed this in our last videos, that it is going to remove the changes if somebody do it using imperative commands. So it is also going to track it for every 30 seconds, and with this command we are not directly applying this to our Kubernetes cluster namespace. First we are creating this manifest file. So here also, since we have changed our repository, I'm going to replace, right? So here we are telling customization to refer the source. We gave the source reference as git repository ktest nginx app sot. So this is the git repository, right? This is a git repository which will be created as an object in our Kubernetes cluster, and it is referring to this URL. And as I mentioned in the command, it is going to reconcile for every 30 seconds, and it will look into the deploy directory and prune. We discussed all these. Now what we'll do is, since our manifest files are ready, I'm going to, if I show you here kubens, I'm in flux cd tutorial namespace. So what I'll do is, if I show you kubectl get customization, so we don't have any customization defined in our namespace. So now what I'll do is kubectl apply -f deploy flux underscore source. So okay, it says we need to follow some naming convention here, that okay, I corrected the names. It was not allowing underscore and all. So here we have, now I have run this command, and we have created this git repository kind object in our Kubernetes cluster. So now this source controller knows that we have defined our source of truth. Now we need to define this customization controller and tell it to track this object which we created. Now I'll be applying this kubectl apply -f deploy flux sync. Alright, so we created even these two. Now we have defined our source, and we told customization controller to track this object. Now what we have to do is, since we have our Nginx application in our local repository, we need to push it to our remote. Now what I'll do is, here I'll just push those changes, added Nginx application. Before that, what I'll do is, I'll show you in our namespace we don't have any deployment objects, kubectl get pods, so we don't have any pods also. I have committed the changes. Commit is done, so I'll be pushing this branch to our remote repository. So here we have, so I'll be giving the link of this GitHub repository. So here we have all the files. Now we'll see whether whether our flux has pulled this our changes or not. So it's a commit ID is this one. Now what I'll do is kubectl get customization. So we'll wait for 30 seconds. It says it has pulled this 0061 some commit ID. Now we need to check kubectl get pods. Amazing. So we have our Nginx application running now. So this means, what this means is, like, our customization has pulled our changes from our code repository which we have here, right? So it has pulled all these changes, and it has pulled all these changes from our Git repository and applied to our Kubernetes environment. Now if I show you, we also had one service, node port service. Now I'll do kubectl get svc. Great. So now we have service is also running. What I'll do is, we'll check, browse the kubectl get nodes -o wide. Since we have opened it on the node port service, I will take the IP of this here we have the Nginx application running. So our application is running now perfectly fine. So what I'll do is, I'll update this replicas to 2 now, right? Now we have updated. If you see, now we have kubectl get pods, or you can say kubectl get deploy. Initially we it was not showing anything, right? So we have one deployment object which was having one replica, right, which is running 1 out of 1. Now I have made it to 2. Now let us change that and updated replica count. I'll sync here and push. So we have this second commit of 8.5, this one. Now we'll check our customization controller. So it has pulled 8.5 commit also, right? So this commit is pulled now. What I'll do is kubectl get deploy. Great. Now you see, we updated it to two replicas of our Nginx. Here we have 2 pods running in our deployment object. So we saw that how this is the way now, using fluxcd GitOps, we are able to maintain complete manifest files in our Git repository, and we, using this Git repository, we are defining the desired state of our Kubernetes cluster. So the cluster which we are running in here local, so we are defining the state of our environment by simply changing the manifest files over here. So that's the beauty of the GitOps pull model. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. In next video we'll explore some more features, like we'll create hem chart and we'll do the deployment, repeat the same process. And in the next video, coming videos, will combine customization and mchat. We'll keep on exploring this solution. So thank you for your time now. See you in next video.